As a Green Beret, I went on 5 deployments. If you combine the training into it, it's about 10 years, and that was about 8 years, a little over 8 years operational. I got there at the beginning of 2013 to 5th Special Forces Group in Fort Campbell. My first deployment, I think, was in 2015 with them. So between 2015, I deployed every year for 5 years.
And how long is the deployment? And how long do you get to come home?
So the advantage of being a Green Beret is our deployments are usually shorter. So we do 6-month combat deployments normally. And then we have something called, they're basically training deployments, JSETs. So we would go out 6 months combat, come back for 6 months, and then rinse and repeat.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next edition of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. I'm so honored to have you folks back here today. The guests here this week, you're going to see me fangirling here just a little bit because I've been doing the research on this guy. I'll tell you how I met him here in just a second. But we've got another true American hero and patriot on the show this week. You know, I bring some real studs and studettes in here, and this guy's right up there at the top of that list. He spent 20 years in the U.S. military. He's a combat veteran, a member of our elite Green Beret with 5th Division out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. After that, he didn't stop serving his fellow man. He and his now wife created or co-founded a company called Aerial Group, and it helps veterans and it helps other people that need help. And we're really going to get into that because I'm getting goosebumps here just talking about it now. And he can see me on the camera right now. You can't see him yet. And he's laughing at me. And he's giving me the finger and things like that. But, and maybe best of all, he's a fellow Irishman. So, you know, it's going to be good. We're not going to drink on the show, but yeah, you never know what's going to happen, right? My normal listeners, you know, Murph's a teetotaler. Everybody wants me to go to the bar with him because I'm the designated driver, and I'm good with that. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just quit beating around the bush here. Our guest today is Jeremy Locke. Jeremy, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show and welcome.
Hey, Murph, I'm honored to be on the show. So thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm the one that's honored here. It's and if you're wondering how we met, if you guys remember back in episode 145 and 144, I had the first husband and wife team on back to back. It was Jenna Griffith and her husband Seth. That was back in, let's see here, May of 2024. So it's a little bit back there, but you can find those on our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com, if you're interested. But the cool thing was, I told you guys about Jen and Seth working with a group called Aerial Recovery. They're based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Well, our guest today is one of the co-founders. He and his wife started that company. So obviously that's how I met Jeremy here. And Jeremy, what we'd like to do is, you know, and actually, as I was doing the research on you, I saw your wife's name and I thought, well, let me just take a look at her. I think I'm going to be reaching out to you to put me in contact with her to see if she'd be willing to come on the show because I love doing the husband-wife thing. Yeah,
I would suggest that should be your second husband and wife duo there. She's, I try to hold a candle to her. She's a pretty impressive woman.
Hey, brother, we all marry up, you know? Mm-hmm. That's good. So just to kick things off here, Jeremy, if you would just tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what your family dynamics were, what mom and dad did. In high school, did you play sports? Did you go to college? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I was actually born in Portland, Oregon, but you can't hold it against me. Yeah, back when I was born and growing up, Portland was still a pretty cool city. I grew up, you mentioned it before, my grandpa's side was Irish and my grandma's side is Native American, actually, which kind of has all my tattoo symbolism all over my body. But no, I grew up a very loving household. Unfortunately, when I was younger, around 7, my mother and father divorced, but they kept a good relationship back and forth. And I was a very active athlete, maybe not more active in athletics than I was in academics, but you got to pick a lane somewhere, right? And my parents may not have been too happy about that, but I played football, basketball, golf. I was actually a better golfer than all those other ones, but I had a good little upbringing there. I can't complain too much. I have just like a lot of other people and have had things happen to them in their childhood, no fault of really of my parents or anything. I was just in situations where I shouldn't have been when I was a kid. And as I'll get into later, as we talk about story, I'm very open with traumas that have happened to me now. And I'm very active talking about that because I really like encouraging veterans and first responders, especially to, get that stuff out of you. And it's okay to talk about bad things as well as not just the good things. Right. So, after that, 2001, I graduated from Gresham High School right outside of Portland, Oregon, and decided to join the U.S. Army.
Whoa, right straight out of high school.
Right out of high school. My dad, he always told me he would help me with getting into a college. And right around the time when, I was about to start paying for it, he started really talking to me about the military. So I don't know if he was being cheap or something, but it ended up being a good decision.
Well, I mean, would you consider yourself responsible back then, or maybe he was trying to teach you a little discipline?
I needed to go in the military for sure. Yeah. I needed some discipline.
Coming out of high school, one of my best friends, Jerry, he and I decided we were going to go in the buddy system into the Air Force. And then when time came, Dad's like, no, son, you're going to college first. You can go to the military afterwards if you want to. And Jerry did go. So God bless him. He still talks to me this day, believe it or not.
There you go. It wasn't a buddy ruiner. It's the empty seat next to him on the bus to basic training.
Yeah. Where's my friend? That son of a gun. I'm sure he called me things other than that. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. Yeah. I have a younger sister. I'm about 4 years older than her. And she actually, one of my most recent hires at Aerial Recovery now. So she works with me, which has been fantastic because I spent my whole adult life away from her, me in different various military installations, deployments, overseas tours. And she's always been in the Pacific Northwest. So it's been a really great experience to work with her and close that connection a little bit more.
That's outstanding, man. That you get to get back together with your family. Was she still on the West Coast, and then she moved over to Tennessee, or?
She's still on the West Coast. I'm trying to convince her to move over now. I think I'll get her though. And I have a nephew who is only a year older than my son. He's 3. His name's Silas, and then my son Bear is just turning 2 in a couple days from now, actually.
Well, congratulations to you and Brittany, and say his name again.
My Silas is my nephew's name.
No, your son's name.
Oh, Bear.
Like Bear?
Bear. Bear Locke. The best thing is I gave him a built-in pickup line. His middle name is Danger. Bear Danger Locke.
Oh, you gotta love it. And Brittany was okay with that, huh?
She was. Yeah, she was okay with it.
Excellent. Well, just had an old friend of mine on for the second time. His name is Rick Rambo.
There you go.
I even questioned him again. Is that your real name, or did you make that crap up? He's like, no. And he explained how he got the name, but Rambo's family name. But and he went into the. He was military, but I think he was in the National Guard, if I remember correctly. But
he's got to become a Green Beret if he's.
Well, he did his time. He's a stud, man. He's a stud. Whenever they were looking for a volunteer, get Rambo's butt up here.
That's right. The colonel flies in on his helicopter and picks him up wherever he is.
It goes and digs him out of that cave.
He's shirtless somewhere,
I tell you what, Rick's a stud, man. And I'm pretty sure most of our listeners have listened to that, but it's the episode 217, things that they were doing. He's, as an American law enforcement officer, he's been involved in several fatal shootings, got hit himself with a .357 round. Luckily he had on his plate and his vest.
Oh, wow.
He survived. But then the things that they went through down in St. Croix, it's certainly not the paradise that we're all led to believe, that the tourists see down there. But that's a whole different story. So, all right. So now where do you have to go to join the Army? Do you go there in Portland? Where do they ship you off to?
Yeah, there was a MEP station. I remember that somewhere in Eastern Portland. Joined there, and then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, for my infantry training. So I was in the infantry when I first came in, and stayed in Fort Benning for quite a while. And then immediately after, I went to airborne school. And after I graduated airborne, I was supposed to go to the 82nd, but I had a girlfriend who was a year or 2 years behind me in high school, and she wanted to go to DC area, George Washington, Georgetown. So I got recruited for the Honor Guard, which is the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment in Washington, D.C. So I was my first duty station was the Honor Guard.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you talking about the Honor Guard up at the Tomb of the Unknown?
Yeah, so that's one of the platoons of the Honor Guard, or one of the companies. That's one of the specialty companies there. I was in Charlie Company and Bravo Company in my time. I actually was the first combat deployed company in the Honor Guard since Vietnam. So that was pretty interesting. Did a tour in the Horn of Africa.
Wow. So did they make you wear your Honor Guard uniform when you got deployed?
No, we didn't wear that one. That was too hot.
Stupid joke.
Yeah. No, I kind of like that unit. There's a lot of the special operations guys. A lot of them came from there. You have to have a certain GT score, for which is your aptitude for learning, the way the Army tests to see if you're smart or not. So that has to be high. And then they want everybody to be 5'10", preferably 6 foot or taller. So all you do is you got to look nice in your uniform. So you work out all the time and represent the country. So you find a lot of pretty athletic, tall, intelligent guys there that do very well when they go to selection and that sort of thing.
Excellent. Now, when you went to MEPS, what did after you got your score back, what did that qualify you for?
I was actually qualified for a lot of things. One thing I kind of suck at is math, but so I don't think I was working on anything too technical when it comes to repair work or anything like that. But no, I had pretty much everything open to me. Now, remember when I joined in 2001, a lot of people remember September 11th. I joined in July of 2001, right? So there wasn't anything really active going on at that time. There was some troops out in Bosnia, more of like humanitarian peacekeeping type of mission. So when I was there, I was like, well, if I'm going to join, I was thinking 4 years of it, get some money for college, I've always wanted to travel, get away from home a little bit. And I figured, well, I might as well do something fun, get to shoot a lot of guns and everything. So that's kind of why I joined the infantry. It really had no aspirations or anything else. I just thought it would be cool. And then you fast forward just a little bit and I'm in basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia on KP kitchen patrol. I'm washing some pots and pans and all of a sudden the air raid sirens on the base start going off and we all get pushed out because you go back and remember and during September 11th, nobody really knew what was going on at the beginning. Right. And, all we really heard that the country was under attack. So the Army bases, they all started locking down. And back then you could drive, a civilian could drive onto an Army base. Most of them didn't even have checkpoints, right? You just couldn't purchase anything at the stores or any of that stuff. You had to have military ID cards, but they were pretty open bases. And that changed very quickly after September 11th. That's for sure.
I remember that. I mean, I remember being able to drive on the bases. Just I'm thinking about Fort Story down in Virginia Beach that you could. I mean, it's like the main highway just went right through the middle of the base.
Yeah, it goes right through. I remember even when I was leaving to go to basic training, I had my family and friends. All of them were at the gate when I was boarding the plane. They just walked there with me. Security was way different just a little over 20 years ago.
Yeah, my wife and I, we had just transferred 3 weeks before 9/11. I got my first transfer to Washington, D.C. And the office, I was in Special Operations Division. We were out in Lorton. I don't know if you remember where that is from your time in the D.C. area, right along I-95 where those big fuel tanks are for National Airport.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Our office is right across the street. So we're, when 9/11 happens, they call everybody in. Everybody's got a gun. You're at now protection detail out we were fenced in. And you're looking at those tanks across the street and then thinking, if they would hit those, we're just vapor.
Yeah.
There's no chance of surviving that. So, but I think probably everybody that was around during 9/11, regardless of where you were in the country, remember where you were that day and what we all went through. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was a terrible time.
Did that incident have any impact on your future career in the military? I mean, did you I want to go over there and pay back. I want revenge on these guys.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I think that while it was such a terrible time, and that's not the incident or type of incident you want to have to bring your country together. I mean, the United States was so unified post 9/11. And, we don't want something like that to happen again, but just look at the state of things now. So it was a very patriotic time, and being in the military, that was very influential in my future, because I was primarily in the honor guard. We do funeral detail at Arlington National Cemetery. So we do simple and full honors is what we would call those, depending on your rank, or if you are a Medal of Honor recipient or any of that sort of stuff. And when I first got there, we were doing a lot of funerals for Korean War veterans, World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans. These are mainly vets that had lived a long life and, survived the war and all of that. And there's a vast difference, because I was what was called a present for some of my time on a team, and we fold the flag up. And once you get your 1, 3, 5 stars, that flag would come to me, and then I would present that to the next of kin. And you say, "Sir, ma'am, this flag is presented to you on behalf of a grateful nation for the honorable and faithful service rendered by your loved one." So there's one thing passing that off to a widow, or a 70, 80-year-old widow. It's another thing as we started getting into 2022 and the Afghanistan war and Iraq. Now that next of kin, that started becoming a 19, 20-year-old wife or a 40-year-old parent, and started hitting a lot more home, because now I'm seeing a lot of these younger kids. I mean, I'd say kids was 18 when I was there. Those are the ones that are coming back, unfortunately. And another thing that the Honor Guard does, I don't know if a lot of people are super familiar with it, but when a service member is killed overseas and their remains, they're always escorted. Usually it's by one of their designees on their unit, but they come back, and when it gets back, they usually come in through Dover Air Force Base, and the Honor Guard will fly out. We'll fly on Blackhawks, and we'll fly out there, and we'll receive those C-17, C-5s that are coming in. And, that bay door drops, and we're in our uniforms, and we're at attention. We're marching. It's very professional and very dignified. It's called a dignified transfer of remains. But when you see that bay door drop, you're looking at 30, 40, 50 caskets sometimes in there. And we would go up, and every single one of them, transfer them onto the back of a hearse, and those would go off and go to where they needed to go. So a lot of times back to us in DC for burial or wherever the family wanted them to be. So it was, in seeing that, it's very difficult for me while I did go to the Horn of Africa, it wasn't combat, right? I knew I would regret it the rest of my life if I didn't deploy to combat. After something like that, a direct attack on our nation, seeing my fellow Americans out there paying the ultimate sacrifice. And I was kind of like a cheerleader, to be honest with you. Like, I'm on the sidelines, not really a participant. I'm just helping them. And I wanted to get out there, and I wanted to do my part.
Yeah. And we'll get into that here just in a minute. I think you can see the flag up here over my left shoulder. That was my dad served in the U.S. Army in World War II. He was in Europe, and that was the flag that was presented to him, or presented to us on his burial.
I see it. Yeah.
Very proud to display that. So now your first, how long were you on the Honor Guard? How many years was that?
I was there from about 4 years, from 02 to 06.
And then do you ask to come to another unit, or how does that work in the Army?
Yeah. So for me, I was enlisted, right? You have kind of 3 different paths you can go. Enlisted, you have a warrant officer, and then you have your officer path. So me coming out of high school, I wasn't eligible to become an officer. You have to have a bachelor's degree and all that, right? So I came in as a private first class, I think, from some of my testing on the way in. And then once you come on that initial contract, my contract was for 4 years. So 4 years active service, 4 years inactive. And as you're getting towards the end of those 4 years, your reenlistment window opens up. So about a year prior, maybe 18 months prior, I don't remember at this point, but you can reenlist. And then when you want to reenlist, you'll go to the reenlistment office, and they'll show you what jobs are available, what different duty stations. Sometimes they have bonuses. At that time, they were building the strength up of the Corps, because we had to we were actively in theater. So there was some pretty good bonuses especially for combat arms. And I was at combat arms as an infantryman. So I went there and I actually, you mentioned Murph, the Battle Buddy program. I had a friend of mine, Ryan Fritchie, he was kind of in the same situation as me. He was an amazing human being from Indiana. Loved playing basketball, a really close friend of mine. And we got to that point where, we had fiancés and we were like, we can get out, but we feel like we haven't really served. And he was more of like leaning towards getting out than I was, but I kind of talked him into it. And we joined, we went and decided to go to Germany, and Germany was slated to deploy into Iraq or Afghanistan real quick. So that was our decision there.
And so is that what happened?
Yeah. We went there, and this is actually, there's those Chronos moments in your life, right? Like some really important points that you can point out in your life. And that was one of mine. I have kind of 5 really memorable moments of my life. And, like I said, my whole personality kind of changed. If you are a veteran or even law enforcement and all that, especially in the military, they're really brainwashing you. We run around, blood makes the grass grow green. Like there's, napalm sticks to kids. These are the types of things that you're singing when you're running around. But really what they're doing is desensitizing you, because you are a young person going overseas to a foreign land to find, fix, and kill the enemy. And it's a very serious work if you really think about it, and I had that moment. I was telling you before, I had this sense of duty, and Ryan was more leaning towards getting out, but I kind of talked him into it. And I always, at the time it seemed great, but it was really me. I mean, I'm still young at this point. I'm in my early 20 years old or something. I'm 21. And, I was 21, about to be 22. And so we go over the reenlistment office. We both decided to go to Germany. We both had pretty recent engagements and have to speed up the process to get married. So we both get married. And we did that because we can't go to Germany with a girlfriend, right? They have to be a dependent. So we need to be married to them. So when we get our orders to come back, he gets his first, and it's got him and Brandy are on his orders. And then my orders come in, and mine say Smith Barracks, which was different than his. And I was like, I thought I was on the Battle Buddy program, and my wife wasn't attached to mine. So I had to get him recut, which is when I got him recut, 30 days later, they sent me to a different unit. So Ryan deploys ahead of me, and he goes to Vilseck, Germany, a detachment of the 173rd. And I go to the 1st Armored Division, 1/6 Infantry, and I'm in Baumholder, Germany. And so he's about 30 days ahead of me now, right? And, I'm like, well, what happened to this Battle Buddy thing? Well, they're telling me, well, we guarantee that you go to the same country, not the same duty station. I was like, yeah, it must have been in the fine print, right? But so when I get out there, I'm about to deploy. We get our orders. We're going into just outside Sadr City, Iraq, and in the Army and anywhere else, you do a pre-deployment workup. So in Germany, you go to Grafenwehr and Hohenfels for about 30 days, and you start doing a bunch of training, qualifications to make sure that your unit's deployable and ready to go fight. And I remember sitting down in between, and this is Germany in wintertime or something. It's freezing, 3-4 foot of snow. And we would get a chance to go get hot chow in the morning. And there's a newspaper. It's called the Stars and Stripes. And when you open up the Stars and Stripes, the first 1, 2, 3 pages on there is something called the Faces of the Fallen. And sure enough, as I open up, those are those that have been killed in combat. Ryan Fritchie's face is right there when I open the paper up.
Oh.
So he was ahead of me, deployed to Afghanistan, and he was killed in a near ambush, unfortunately. And, for me, that was a very difficult time, because as I start looking back on it, and as you always do, what coulda, shoulda, that sort of thing, I get this feeling of I talked him into coming out, right? I killed him, essentially, was the way that my brain was connecting this. And then I went to, well, someone's got to pay for it. And my mind started shifting at that point. And then I was really motivated to deploy, and I wasn't motivated anymore out of patriotism. I was motivated out of revenge. And that was a difficult time in my life, but something I had to deal with,
And so did you end up in Iraq from there?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. So I deployed to Iraq. Initially it was a 12-month tour and ended up getting extended out to 15 months. And we were just outside of Sadr City. It was very kinetic at the time. This was about 2007 going into 8, as I remember it. And at that time, the green zone, these areas around Baghdad that had been relatively secure, the larger bases that you would find, there was a lot of rockets going into the green zone. And there's this bad dude called al-Sadr, Mahmoud al-Sadr, and he was in charge of this big militia that was in Sadr City, Baghdad, a suburb of Baghdad. And the Jaish al-Mahdi was his little fighting group he had out there. So we were up against them, and a lot of combat, especially initially at the beginning of it. And that's when I found out war, you watch it on movies, and some of them depict it a little bit better, like Black Hawk Down and some of those movies, Saving Private Ryan. That scene, that D-Day scene is just very incredibly accurate. But it's not as glorious as it may seem. It's rather terrible.
It really is, and that's, we could go off on a different tangent here about the kids playing their games today, thinking that's real life. And it's a video game. When you get out and see the gore and the chaos and the anarchy and things that humans really should never see in their lives, it's a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, there's no respawning in real life.
Yeah. And it's like going to the range. The paper targets don't shoot back at you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but let's get back on track here. So now you spend, I think I read 10 years in infantry, but then you decide that you want to change. Now, is this another re-enlistment?
Yes. So that was, I stayed on the enlisted side of things. So as I got to about 10 years in, I had gone from Germany, done a deployment out there, and then I went and got orders. I was back to Fort Benning again. This time I was working as a heavy weapons leadership course instructor. And when I was back there, I remember one of my times out in Iraq, I was with a sniper team, and we had we essentially had kind of a siege. It's kind of interesting the way that we did it, but the way that the Jaish al-Mahdi, they had a whole neighborhood, big section of this city that they controlled. So our leadership decided that we would put them under siege. And what that meant is we put these giant T-walls in, and they actually have armored cranes, if you were ever curious. But so we're in direct combat, and there's just one main road, and you have the U.S. and coalition fighters on one side, and then you have the JSOD on the other side. And we would drive to there, and we would offload these giant concrete barriers, and we built this entire wall around the whole area. And then we controlled that wall, and we started, starving them out. We basically were doing a siege. And I remember as we would do that, I would move ahead with the sniper team 4 or 5 houses down, because it was very slow work. And then we would set up overwatch positions looking for enemy. One of the houses we were on, we couldn't quite get a good shot with we were trying to set the rifle up, but we were too exposed. And there was like these 4 bearded, tattooed dudes that came up to the top, and they're like, "Hey, what are you guys looking at?" And we're like, "We're trying to get like, oh, hold on a second." One of them puts a bag down and pulls out some equipment and starts messing with it and sticks it on the wall. He's like, "Hey, plug your ears," and then, punches a loophole. So he set up a little explosive device, shot a hole in the wall, and he's like, "All right, you guys can shoot through that." And then they're like, "Take it easy." And they rolled out. I was like, "Who the heck are these guys?" And they were special forces guys, right? Yeah. So that always stuck in my mind. I was like, "Man, those guys are pretty cool." So I got to a point where my time was about to get up, and I was thinking, do I want to stay in the Army, or do I want to get out and do the civilian thing? And have I really done what I want to do? And there was some times in the infantry that I was like, it's just not specialized enough. I think I might end up finding myself in a bad situation here. I don't really want to stay in the infantry. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try out for the special forces. If I make the special forces, good, I'll stay in. If I don't make it, I'll finish out whatever time I have left, and then I'll get out then. So that was kind of my catalyst, that memory there. And so for Fort Benning, I went to selection. 2 weeks in hell is another name for it. It was pretty terrible, but fortunately I performed well and I got selected to go to Fort Bragg at the time for the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Training Center.
How many years did you have in when you went to selection?
So I was about 9 years in, 8 or 9 years at that point when I went to selection.
And then how long is the training before you actually become a Green Beret?
I mean, it's pretty intensive. And you know, the old adage, back when I did it, back when it was hard. But it was the 2 weeks. And once you get selected, it's a whole PCS change, because your training can be anywhere from 18 to 24 months, depending on what your job specialty is. Usually for the medics, it's a little bit longer. They have some more technical stuff to train. So I went there, and my training, it took me about a little over 20 months, because I had an injury from a parachuting accident, which broke my tailbone and messed my back up. So it took me a little bit to recover from that, and then I was able to continue training. But I graduated the Green Berets in 2012. That's when I earned my Green Beret.
If you got a bone that you want to break, it's not your butt bone.
It's not, especially when you're at that point. I was in language school. They each Green Berets, you learn a language, and mine was Arabic. So I spent most of my language school standing, not sitting.
Wow. How hard was Arabic? I mean, is it Farsi, or is it Urdu?
No. So Farsi, Urdu are usually in Afghanistan or that sort of thing. Arabic, we learn what's modern standard MSA Arabic. And then as we deployed, we learned, not a lot of people actually speak that. You got to learn Levantine primarily. When I did a lot of tours in Syria. So Levantine out there, we learned that. It was difficult, but we have 5 days a week, 8-hour days for 3 or 4 months or something. So you get pretty immersed in it. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it now. It's been a while since it's not very useful language for me now that I'm out, but it was very useful while I was in.
Yeah. What was your specialty going to be in the Green Beret?
I was a Special Forces Communications Sergeant, and I figured I'd done enough weapon stuff in the infantry. I might as well learn a new skill, and I decided to go communications. So I was primarily setting the radios up, doing a lot of the comms, satellite communications, networking. There's very technical stuff that we do as well. So I enjoyed that. It's as long as you can follow a set list of instructions, you're pretty good. So yeah, it was a good time.
A, B, C, D.
ABC. Yeah, that's right. Antennas, batteries, connections. And that one thing I did learn, though, if you want to, the old trick, turn it off, turn it back on. The technical term for that's called a power cycle. Then you make yourself sound smart.
Yeah. I'll stop calling it reboot.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm aging myself when I say that, right? Mm-hmm. Now, so it almost sounds like that you're in a combat zone, but you're still seeing combat because, they don't set the radios back up where it's safe in the green zone, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the way that detachments work, you have an ODA, kind of like that old 80s show, the A-Team. So we're an A-Team. So on the A-Team, you have, in another movie, 12 Strong, there's 12 members of the A-Team. So that consists of, you have 4 specialties on the enlisted side. You have we're called 18 series. That's the different series you get in the Army. Right. I was an 11 Bravo when I was in the infantry. I reclassed to an 18 Echo, which is Special Forces Communications. So there's a senior and a junior Echo. So there's 2 communications sergeants. There's Charlies, which are engineering sergeant, senior and a junior. Then you have your medics, and then you have your weapons sergeants, and you'll have a team sergeant, a warrant officer, and a captain team leader on your team. So that makes your 12 person, and we have 1 Fox-Tune intelligence sergeant. So that's your 12 person. And what is really unique about the Green Berets is we're designed to work by, with, and through partner forces in foreign countries, right? So a 12 person ODA is designed to do all of the functions at a battalion level. So we work with a battalion of partner force. So we up to force multiplication up to about 1,000 troops. So that's why we're separated down in these different specialties, where a communication sergeant while we still go out and fight and go to sniper school and Cephalic and all these, high speed schools. We have to make sure that the radios work, and we have to make sure that our radios talk to the partner forces radios and the aircraft and all of that. And then the engineers, they would make sure that all of our equipment is working. They also run our logistics, making sure that we get everything that we need. Our medics not only patch our holes and, put tourniquets on us and do all that sort of stuff. They actually do all of our administrative functions too, making sure we're paid properly and all that stuff. So that whole 12-person team, people always ask me like, do you know so-and-so? I'm like, man, we are so tight knit as this 12-person team that you don't really even know a lot of other Green Berets, but that's what they're designed for. A very highly skilled, specialized, small unit that can go and work with other units and make them better.
For our, and that term force multiplier is going to come into play here once we get to talking about your life after the military. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned PCS. Can you just explain what that is to our listeners? Yes,
a PCS is a permanent change of station. That's basically just when you're at this unit and then you go to this other unit.
And then you mentioned ODA. Can you explain that one?
Yeah, ODA is an Operational Detachment Alpha.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So things that, I don't know if you want to know that or not, but now you know.
Now you know. And then you have to chat GPT it.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the ABC. We always operate under the KISS principle.
Oh, yeah. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
I know that one.
It works. Sometimes it's easy to overthink yourself and get yourself into hot water, especially when you're in a bad place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of times quick action will outdo slow thinking.
Yeah. How many deployments did you end up going on then as a Green Beret?
As a Green Beret, I went on 5 deployments.
And that's over the next roughly 10 years?
That was about, if you combine the training into it, it's about 10 years. And that was about 8 years, a little over 8 years operational. Well, I got there at the beginning of 2013 to 5th Special Forces Group in Fort Campbell. My first deployment, I think, was in 2015 with them. So between 2015, I deployed every year for 5 years.
And how long is the deployment? And how long do you get to come home?
So the advantage of being a Green Beret is our deployments are usually shorter. So we do 6-month combat deployments normally. And then we have something called, they're basically training deployments, JSETs. So those are those are usually 4 months of deployment. So we would go out 6 months combat, come back for 6 months, and then rinse and repeat. So it was very high op tempo because when you're back for those 6 months, you're not just stationary. You're going to, all these specialty schools to keep yourself honed, dive school, free fall, all these different things you're going to, and sensitive site exploitation, all these different schools. So you're really busy. It was one of the most, I thought I would never be more busy than that in my life until I started doing what I'm doing now. But
yeah,
I like to be busy.
It's impressive. Can you say what countries you were deployed to? You mentioned Iraq, but
yeah, the ones I can mention, I was in Iraq, Syria. I actually never did an Afghanistan deployment. And then I was in 2 other ones that I can, if we do this again in about 20 years, we can talk about those ones. But but Iraq and Syria primarily. The other ones weren't a big deal. You'd get bored if you read about what I did.
I doubt that very seriously. I'm still fangirling over what I've read about you here just in the last few days, getting ready for our talk today. I did a TDY, just a 2-week TDY over to Afghanistan and went around to a lot of different places over there. Believe me, you didn't miss a thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I know. But Mike Griff, who you had on the show earlier, you mentioned earlier, I think he was 5 or 6 tours in Afghanistan.
Jeez.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I can't think of a better term. I use this term frequently on the show, studs and studettes. I mean, that's what it takes to get the job done. And heroes will never admit that they're heroes. And that's just part of being a hero. People just say they're doing their job, but that's very heroic what you guys were doing over there. So,
thank you.
Yeah. God bless you, man. Thank you for your service there.
Yeah. Thank you too.
How hard was all those deployments on a marriage?
Well, I mean, I'm not, I had a new marriage, so they were very hard. My first deployment, especially, one of those ones that goes from, there's nothing worse when you're expecting to come back a certain time and then you get extended. So
Right.
we were supposed to be 10 to 12 months, which is a long time. I mean, that's a year, right? And then at about the 10th month, we were told we're staying 3 more months. So now you have all these things, right? Like, I don't remember exact time frame, but I know it made me miss like Christmas again. I think I missed two consecutive Christmases, and that makes it really hard. And also, you know, when you're younger, I think, you know, and my marriage was rushed too, right? We got married sooner than we would have if I wasn't moving to Germany.
Right.
And we just weren't ready to be married at that time. And, you know, unfortunately, I got in one of those situations that I was overseas, and not really a Dear John letter, but I found out that there wasn't being faithful while I was gone. And that pretty much was the beginning of the end for the marriage, and a real difficult time for me when I got back as well. But, you know, God, I forgive her, and there's many things that she hopefully forgives me for. And now she's remarried now and has a family and seems to be doing well. So I'm happy about that. And there's everything you do in life, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's really God. In my opinion, that's God preparing you for what you're supposed to be doing in this world. So you go through pain so that others may not have to. And yeah, I've been through a lot of pain, and that's why I'm comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And for our listeners, just so you know, like every guest we have on here, I tell them at the beginning, if I ask you a question you don't want to answer, just say it, and we won't talk about it. So thank you for being open and honest about that. So when you come out, you're ready to get out of the Army after 20 years. Why did you decide you want to get out now?
Well, I was pretty fortunate, right? I had something to look forward to. I had something that pulled me out of it, because I figured I would be one of these guys that would go and maybe get out of the Army, but then I would go contracting work for maybe an agency or something like that. I was pretty heavily recruited for some of the intelligence side of things. That was my secondary skill on my Green Beret team. We call it basically additional skills, but it's
additional responsibilities.
But mine was more of asset development, like how working with Indigenous people, convincing them to do things, that sort of stuff. So, which also plays well with what I do now. So I wanted to continue to do that, but I had this thought in my mind that, I mean, doing something like that is really all I know how to do and feel comfortable doing. So my heart really goes out to a lot of these veterans and first responders too, that you spend the better part of, 20 years at that point, right? That's more than half of my life doing something, and earning a lot of praise for it. We're not like the Vietnam days. I'd get back and people were nice to me, and I'd get a free burger at wherever, like when on Veterans Day, like I wasn't getting spit on when I came back from overseas. So I met my now wife in Nashville at the airport. I was flying down with some of my friends to go dove hunting in the Mississippi Delta, and she was happening to be going the same place. And I met her, and she was just unlike anybody I had met before. And I'll probably talk about this in a little bit, but at that point in my life, I was a functioning alcoholic, and I have no problem admitting that. I was drinking 4, 5, 6 nights a week, and I didn't think I had a problem because when I was deployed out to Syria or whatever, I wasn't drinking. And I just kind of figured I cannot drink if I don't want to, but once I start drinking, I just couldn't end up drinking. So at that time, I was hanging around with a bunch of enablers. That's what we did. A lot of them way younger than me at this point, and they're still in that kind of party college lifestyle. And I'm just this Army guy, SF guy that they kind of look up to, that has a little bit more money than them. So I buy more drinks. And, I tell people nowadays, like, I was a jester. I wasn't a king. I was a jester at the time. But so I met her, and she's younger than me. I'm 42 now. She's 37, and she's an entrepreneur. She lived in her car for a while. She, at one point in the mid teens, 2016, I believe, she had the sixth fastest growing women-owned business in the world, according to Forbes. And was just different than me, homeschooled, and worked for everything that she wanted to do. Never drank, never partied, focused on solving a problem that she saw when she was 12 years old on a mission trip in Costa Rica. She saw a young girl that was unable to speak to her due to sexual violence that had destroyed her vocal cords. Oh. And it was devastating to her, especially as a 12-year-old, she was a kid at that time too. And she started learning more about it. And it was that young kid was a victim of human trafficking. And this is back before Sound of Freedom and before everybody even really was talking about trafficking. I'm sure you were up against a different type of trafficking, but even they're all ingrained. I'm sure you saw all that in your time as well.
Unfortunately.
And it's terrible, and talking to her, the very first question she asked me when we were on the airplane, we ended up sitting across from each other, was, "Why are you here on Earth?" And I was like, "What do you mean, why am I here on Earth?" I was like, "Well, there's these storks and then they fly." And no, but she's like, "Why are you on Earth?" And, I gave her a good enough answer. I was like, "Wait, well, this is, different than what I'm used to talking to." And it was stimulating. And, I told her, I don't remember what mumbo jumbo I came up with, but it got me to question number 2, which was, "Well, you must find it difficult to date." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean difficult to date? I'm a barrel-chested freedom fighter. I've got more time in combat than you do in boots, or whatever. I could just that sort of thing." And like, who wouldn't want to date me? Right. It was kind of like, felt like a jab to my ego. She's like, "No, I mean, you've actually seen things that matter. You've seen, and I'm sure you have less patience for a broken nail or, like you actually care more about substantial things." And I was like, okay, that's kind of makes sense. So yeah, I was very interested in her, immediately, and very beautiful, very intelligent, and just spoke and thought differently than I was used to. And I know, you with your podcast now, and you're going around speaking and getting into the entrepreneur space, I kind of consider them the special forces of the business world. And they won't stop at anything to accomplish what they're doing. And for me, it was, completing a combat mission. And for her, it's having a successful business so she can raise more money so to go then help more people. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. So that in meeting her, that really got me thinking, well, hey, there might be another option for me when I get out of the service. So in 2019, so I'm about two years before my end of time in service, 2019, in the Bahamas, there was a Hurricane Dorian was on its way there. And this is a Category 5, huge storm. And I remember trying to get a hold of Brittany, and I was wanting to take her on dates. We'd newly been dating at this point. And she was like, "No, I'm busy. And I'm like, finally, I'm coming to you. And she loves Indian food. So I was like, "I'm bringing Indian food. You gotta see me." So I went to her office in Nashville, Tennessee, in the AT&T, the Pinnacle building, and brought her up there, and she took me into her conference room, and I saw on the whiteboard, and she loves whiteboarding too, but there was like wind speeds and timelines. And I was like, it looks like you're mission planning for something. What is this? She said, "Well, the Bahamas are about to get hit by this hurricane. So I'm going to go out there." And she had a small video production company that she created after Hurricane Irma, which hit the British Virgin Islands, which we have property there. It was, her property before, but I'm property by association now for me. But she had kind of developed this whole video going out and seeing what the needs are to help the people and giving those to the bigger organizations. And she used it at this little tiny org she had called Aerial Global Community that helped serve communities and that sort of stuff. And so she was going to do that again. And I asked her, "Well, hey, can I come?" And she's like, "Yeah, you think you could get off work?" I was in between deployments at the time. So I went to my command and I said, "Hey, I would like to go to the Bahamas for this natural disaster." And Jake Allen was my company commander at the time. I remember, he's a major. I remember talking to him. He was my approval authority for it. And he said, well, why do you want to go there? I mean, we got to keep you safe, first of all. Right. You know, you're a valuable asset to what Fifth Group's mission is, but why do you want to go there? And I told him, well, not because I'm courting this girl, but, you know, I felt compelled. I felt like this was something I was excited for. And I felt like God was kind of pushing me that direction, and he gave me the okay, and I went out there and served. And that's where I got that taste of, there's somewhere else I can use my skills that is not just the same thing where I'm out doing a mission that not all the time I believe in. I believe in my guys and gals to the left and right, but I don't believe in being a human blocking position between another country's force in an oil field or something. You know, it's just, I don't like feeling like a pawn. At this point, I can use my skills and feel like a real player on the chessboard.
I mean, it really does sound like you were chasing the skirt. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I was really just chasing the skirt. So that was a lot of fancy talk there, but yeah, I was really just trying to, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the way it's worked out, you know, a lot of people say that, you know, we were just lucky or it's just coincidence. There's no, in my book, there's no such thing as luck or coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. I mean, I'm assuming that you started talking to her in the airport, and then you guys just end up sitting across from each other.
It's a pretty funny story if you want me to tell it. Like,
sure.
So I mentioned at that time I was more of the jester in the King's Court.
Yeah.
And so I got there with my friends, Austin and Lauren, a really good couple friend of mine. I love them a lot. And we were going to visit his family down there, and they'd convinced me to come down. I wasn't doing anything that weekend. So we get to the airport, Nashville airport, and our flight is delayed. So I don't know Brittany, but Lauren knows Brittany from Instagram because she was trying to do a lot of stuff in real estate, and that's where Brittany really cut her teeth. And so she goes to what you would do in the Nashville airport, especially that time in my life, is, well, you can walk around with open drinks in the airport in Nashville. So Lauren went to go get us some drinks, and I'm there with my buddy Austin, and I see a wheelchair sitting nearby. And I said, hey, Austin, let me show you some cool wheelchair tricks that I learned a few months ago. So I'm sitting in this wheelchair doing some wheelies and all this stuff. And Lauren comes back with this beautiful brunette next to her. And she was wearing a skirt that I'm still chasing to this day. But I remember what she was wearing, a beautiful pink flowing skirt and a white top. And she comes up and introduces Austin. She says, this is my friend, Austin. This is my fiance, Austin. And this is our friend, Jeremy. And I'm still in the wheelchair, mind you. And she goes, he's a Green Beret. And Brittany, looks at me, and, I look at her, and then I just kind of like wheel off. I just didn't get out of that wheelchair. So we wait for the flight to board, and the whole time I'm just wheeling around this wheelchair, not out of necessity, but more out of satire. And when they announce the boarding, I just stand up and walk on the plane, and she's like, what the heck? So she happens to come in, and it was a puddle jumper plane, right? So it was kind of an older one, and a couple of the seats were actually facing each other. So I sat down, and when she came in, I gestured for her to sit in front of me. So we actually were sitting across from each other on the plane, and she's like, oh, you can walk, huh? And I was like, yeah, it's a miracle. But it was like, things aren't always they appear, like you got to ask questions in life, right? Whatever I said. But so she asked me these questions that I mentioned before. And I remember, like, since I was across from her, she was actually going to visit her boyfriend at the time. And, when she asked me one of them, I reached forward and I grabbed her hands. And it's really important that I like to say this part, because even though I've been an idiot for a lot of my life and a drinker, and some could accuse me of being a womanizer at one point in my life when I was a little lost. I'm very respectful of people, especially women. I won't touch them or do any of that. So even to like grab her hands is very out of character for me. And I grab her hands. I remember thinking, I'm going to hold her hands till she like pulls her hands away. And she let me hold her hands for a couple minutes, and they're all shaking and sweaty because she's all like a goody two shoes, And she pulls her hands away, and we get off the plane, we get to the airport, and I gave her my phone number. She links up with their boyfriend there, and it's kind of awkward or whatever. But the hand holding was so important because when I put my phone number in her phone, I put Jeremy Locke and I put from Oregon in it. I didn't write Green Beret or anything like that in there. And she went through a bad marriage. Very difficult for her with a guy who didn't very quickly seemed to be after money, and his whole personality changed once they got married. And she dated another guy, and he started, when they were walking, she loves physical touch. That's her love language. He stopped holding her hand, and she ended up breaking up with him. And she was talking to one of her girlfriends. She's like, I just want to be with a guy that likes to hold my hands. And she's like, who liked holding my hands was that guy on the airplane. Cause I hadn't heard from her in like 8 months. And she's like, that one guy on the airplane, like, what was his name? And so she found me in her phone and sent me a text message. And that was, 8 months later. Yeah, I hadn't heard from her. And
wow.
Yeah. So that's that little simple gesture of something I would normally not do, like that was, it worked out great. Right at the end. I'm not encouraging anybody to go around and just start touching women. Mind you, it was very appropriate, inappropriate, but that wasn't assault, Yeah,
nowadays you might get slammed to the ground by.
That's true. That's it. I'm done. I'm done for.
So you've met Brittany now, and you're seeing the things that she's doing. You go down to the Bahamas to help out during the hurricane. I can't imagine how horrific that was, because I read up on that hurricane a little bit, and it actually stalled over the Bahamas. Yeah,
I sat there for 24 hours just churning. It was unbelievable. And so got a chance to do that deployment there. I call them deployments, right? That trip out there. And we were attached to another group, like aerial recovery, and all of that wasn't really a thing at that point. But what I did see was how my skill sets could be very useful in this environment. It's the same, whether it's war torn or Mother Nature torn, people need the basic necessities. They need security, shelter, food, water, trash, electricity, all this stuff. And that's what we did overseas as well, because we're Green Berets or soldier diplomats. We spend as much time fighting as we do making friends, for various reasons. But this was very familiar to me, and I got to choose where I was serving and what I was doing to help, not having that directed to me in a lot of times. So it was very appealing to me. So I get back from that trip, and that's in late 2019. And then in 2020, I do my final deployment. And when you're about 18 months, a year out, you can decide if you want to retire or not. I still, at this time, wasn't really thinking about it. But as I deployed out to Syria for my last trip out there, I started talking to her, and she has a mastermind called G-Force. And that was really cool for me to be able to sit in on the mastermind. And those are just a bunch of different entrepreneurs that pay attention to what's going on with markets and all that sort of stuff, and help each other out with business deals and everything. So I learned a lot on that. And I was talking to her about, this is really the first time, instead of planning a mission for the government or for Special Forces Group, I was planning a mission for Jeremy Locke and the rest of my life. And it was, it seemed new to me, but I was like, man, that makes sense. Why would I spend so much time doing SWOT analysis, enemy's most likely course of action? What do I have in reserve? All of that for this mission. But I don't do that for myself, And so my whole mindset started changing. And as I really paid attention to what do I really want to do in life, like the concept of, hey, I want to get out and I want to use these skills in the humanitarian space. So we started brainstorming and thinking aerial recovery at the time. And we were thinking, maybe we do it as a for-profit company to come along countries and authorities and help them rebuild after disasters. But ultimately, we wanted to get the inroads in to do anti-human trafficking work. That was really what we wanted to do. So we planned all of that out. And when I got back from Syria, I made that decision. I was like, I'm going to get out of the Army, and I'm going to stand up what is now aerial recovery. And I'm going to do that with who I want to be my wife, because I actually had a vision in my life. And from there, I still have 12 months of active duty time to get out of. And I also still have some lingering issues of trauma from my childhood and from my time in service, compounded by multiple traumatic brain injuries that I've had throughout my time. So my road to get out, a lot like other veterans, wasn't the easiest one. And that was another part of my life that was very difficult to get through and led to some of the darkest times of my life that last year of my time in the military.
So would you, I know we're talking about PTSD. Can you expound on that a little bit? If you're not comfortable, that's fine.
No, I'm comfortable. So here's what happened with me, right? And I don't blame the people. All right. People always talk crap, not everybody, but the veteran, the VA doesn't have the best reputation. Some of these programs in the military, they're very oriented in getting you into the military and keeping you operationally deployed, but they start tapering off when you're trying to transition out of the military, or if you're going to do something that can make you non-deployable, such as go see a psychiatrist for mental health, right? That is very frowned upon. And I'm sure in your line of work too, is just something that you didn't talk about. It was almost taboo. You're too weak to be able to handle what everybody else is seeing. And, there's a lot of people that join the military that have tons of traumas from their past too. And if you've had something sexual or violent happen to you when you're a child, you're way more likely to develop PTSD as an adult. It just makes you more susceptible to it. And, as I got out and put that retirement paperwork in, they start going through my medical records. And in my medical records, they see these IED incidents, improvised explosive devices, where I was in vehicles that were blown up, is what we call it, hit by those. There's a lot of weapon systems that I used, and a lot of loud noises and booms and concussions and all these different things. So they recommended that I go to the, what's called Intrepid Spirit, for screening for traumatic brain injury on my way out, which was good, right? To see what's wrong with me. And, and you're always trying to chase this rating. Everybody wants to be higher rated on the disability scale. What are you, 10%, 20%, right? Because you get more money, right, for the rest of your life. And I think when it's all said and done, I'm at like 420% disabled now. There's a lot more people worse off than me, but not all scars are you wear on the outside, right? Those scars are on the inside, and some of them don't heal some heal faster than others, right? And so as I went to this Intrepid Spirit, where they're taking a look at my medical records and all that, and I'm susceptible, looks like I may be someone who suffered traumatic brain injury. I go to this clinic, and it's really a good clinic, right? It's a program. And it's about a year long, but they screen you first. And after they do MRIs and these various testings on you, they confirm that I have traumatic brain injury, and which is kind of scary because there's not a lot of, you see all this research that's coming out, especially athletes and football players, especially. And you see a lot of these war veterans that just go off the ledge and killing people, killing themselves. And, I think a lot of that can be attributed to brain injuries. So this is uncharted territory for me. And I get in there, and one of the program is great, first of all. So I don't want to talk bad about the program. I had everything from acupuncture to alpha wave therapy, chiropractor, like they had everything. And I remember sitting down in this room, and there's a whole panel of doctors there, neurologists, psychologists, like everybody, physical therapists, and they take a look at your case, and then they come up with this year-long treatment plan for you. It's a very good program. One of mine was a therapist for the first time. I've never talked to a therapist before. And as I mentioned before, it was kind of taboo. Well, I'm getting out of the Army. It's part of the program. I can talk to a therapist, whatever. What are they going to do for me? I still kind of had that attitude, but nobody will know about it. Now, mind you, this is also during COVID, because I'm this is 2020. So I'm getting out. So what was different about this was my therapist was a virtual therapist. I couldn't go in to the office. They're trying to minimize that, right? So I spoke to her, I believe it was every 2 weeks for an hour. Now, the very first time I speak to her, she does the pleasantries, like, just being super nice, and we're introducing ourselves. And about 30 minutes into it, she says, well, all right, let's try something. And are you down to do a little therapy? And I said, yeah, all right, whatever. I'll try anything twice. Right. So she says, what I want you to do is I want you to think of a memory, and I don't want that memory to be one that comes to you right away. I want you to dig a little bit and find a memory that was traumatic for you. But maybe you've suppressed, or it just takes you a little bit to think about. And I'm like, okay, well, this is new. Let me take a look back, because I've spent at this point decades of my life burying traumatic events real down deep inside of me, inside of a box, and pouring an ocean of alcohol on top of it. That was kind of the way that I dealt with everything. And now I'm also, as I mentioned before, my life is now becoming my mission, which was really cool. But as a good soldier or Green Beret would do, I took inventory of what are the things that I have in my life that are going to be useful to get to where I want to go? What are the things that are in my life that are not useful? And then what are the things that are really mission critical that can end what I'm trying to do? And for me, alcohol was the number one mission killer in my life. And I was recognizing that. So I'm trying to go sober at this point, and it was a process for me, right? So I am sober when I'm talking to her. And, I'm not drinking at all. I'm quitting. And so she tells me about this memory. And I remember this time, that first deployment I mentioned earlier in Iraq, we used to get these informants that would come into the small base that we were on. And if they gave you good, valuable intelligence, you would pay them. And one of them came in and said that he knew of a location where a mass execution had taken place of hundreds of people, and into just a big trench that was built. I'm sure you can imagine, if you've seen some Holocaust videos or something like that, that's really terrible, or they still go on today, unfortunately. And so some are true, some are not. So we take a small squad out there on a patrol, and when we get there, we have these little shovels. They're called e-tools, and they bend, and they're no longer than, I don't know, like a foot and a half long or so, and on our gloves. And we get down and to the area that he put on the map for us, and I'm looking at it, and it looks disturbed. So maybe there's something here, but you never know. And we're also checking to make sure this isn't a trap and there aren't a giant bomb there, right? You always got to be careful about that. So we sweep it and probe it, and I start digging up. And as I'm unearthing, I come across this little hand, and this is the hand of this kid, probably like a 7-year-old kid or something, sticking out of the ground. And I don't know how long they've been in there, but that sight, that realization that this is a child, the smell, all of that. And also, mind you, this is a war crime. So this requires an international investigation, which requires security. So our platoon and we were involved in guarding the whole thing while they collected all this evidence and unearthed these hundreds of bodies that came out of this pit. And so I explained that to her, and I was like, yeah, I haven't really thought about that in a while. And she's like, man, that must have been very difficult. She's like, well, thank you for sharing. Let's talk more about this in 2 weeks. Our time is up.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Right. I guess we're done. And
my gosh,
we get off the call, and 2 weeks go by. And in these 2 weeks, I'm having nightmares. I'm not drinking now. Right. Like, so before, I didn't realize how important alcohol was to me to suppress these feelings. Because when you're running life at 100 miles an hour, all that stuff from your past doesn't have time to catch up to you. But when you really start slowing down, that stuff starts coming back, and those feelings and those memories start coming back. And so I started drinking again. I wasn't trying to, but I started drinking. And when I'm drinking, I'm not telling Brittany that I'm drinking, because I'm trying to show her that I'm at her level, right? Like, I'm someone that I deserve to be with her, and she can trust me. And so, yeah, trust me by me hiding something from her. Right.
Yeah.
But, so I get back, and 2 weeks go by, and I get on there, and she asked me how I'm doing. I said, I'm doing terrible. I started drinking again. I have nightmares. My anxiety is back. Like, I'm short on breath. I'm hyper vigilant, just driving down the road, scanning the sides of everything. Driving on the highway is exhausting, because you kind of get put back in that place. And she said, don't worry. I'm going to help you out. And she puts me on prescription medication. So after a call and a half, now I get on Zoloft, and then Zoloft becomes Xanax, and Xanax, Wellbutrin, Adderall, all these different stimulants and beta blockers and all these different things back and forth because they just weren't working for me. And now I'm becoming a different version of myself. And people, prescription medication has a place for people. There's some people that need them for sure. But one of the big arguments, we're so quick, especially to these vets that are getting out or newly out, like let's medicate them. Let's let them calm down. And the overall theme I was getting in my particular case was, you've done enough, like calm down and rest and relax, and your retirement will help. We'll make sure that you get your disability rating. But I've never been like that. I have to be moving forward. I have to be helping and serving. That's how I live.
Right.
So I was so confused at the time. And I went, and this is in 2020. And at the end of 2020, in November or so, Hurricane Eta and Iota come. And those are category 4s or 5s and 4s that hit the coast of Honduras. And they were right after each other, I think a week apart or something like that. And each of them hit within this, it's like 30 kilometers, made landfall at the same spot. So basically identical storms that came through, and catastrophic flooding, loss of life out there, and devastation to a country that's very, very poor and very dangerous. And I get to go out and lead a team out there. And on the humanitarian side, I'm interning for Errol at this point. I'm no longer, I'm still in the Army, but I'm on my processing. So I'm an intern there. And I go and do this, and I have to do a reconnaissance, helicopters. We deliver thousands of pounds of aid on Thanksgiving to these people that have been cut off for weeks. And it was just an amazing trip. And I get back from there. This is the end of November, and I'm feeling great about that, because that gave me that uplift, and I don't even remember what medication I was taking at this point. But I get back from there, and I'm sober for that part. When I get back at the end of November, early December, I go back and I get back to Nashville. Brittany's doing something in the BVI, British Virgin Islands, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go shooting with my friends. And these are my friends from before, the ones that I don't blame them. They're just drinking. That's something that I can't do. Some people can drink. I know I can't drink now. And I go shooting, and then the shooting leads into, well, hey, let's go listen to music. And listening to music in Nashville can lead to other things, right? And I go listen to music, and that night, that was December 5th of 2020. And I remember waking up, not even knowing how I got there, but I woke up in the bottom floor of my duplex in East Nashville, first home I ever owned, through help with my wife and getting my credit better and learning these business things. And I'm renovating it to flip it. And I'm actually doing something like real positive, which is part of my plan of action in my life. And I'm down there, and I wake up just pissed drunk, laying on my phone. And, I look at my phone, and I have all these missed calls. And at that moment, I thought, the Army is gone. Brittany's gone. Recovery is gone. And I made the decision to end my life that morning.
Oh man, that's, and I'm sorry to do this to our listeners, but we're going to call it quit to today's part of the interview. And Jeremy's agreed to could be back here tomorrow. I know I'm leaving you on a cliffhanger here. He's on the show, so it's going to turn out okay. But still, what he's getting ready to go through is just something that I don't want to rush through. So we're going to call it quits for today, Jeremy. Thank you so much for your time so far. All our listeners, thank you so much for continuing to support us here on Game of Crimes. Certainly you want to come back tomorrow and find out the rest of this story. And I know I sound like Paul Harvey when I say that, but truly this is one you want to hear. And we're still got some stuff that I just can't wait for you to learn about what they're doing in aerial recovery. So until tomorrow, God bless. We'll see you then.